click record. Oh, yeah, I'm recording. Okay. Strul, are you recording?
Yeah, got it.
We'll sync.
All right. What's up, man? This is Chris from Brooklyn Wildlife, and people are watching and listening to Just for My People. And today, I have a very special guest. Introduce yourself, my friend.
Hi, I'm Dominic Ford from Just for Fans.
Awesome. And for people that don't know, can you give them a brief rundown of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So currently, I run a site called justfor.fans. It's a user submitted content site where adult performers upload their own content and their fans subscribe to it. Previous to that, I've been in the porn industry for about 12 years with my own gay porn studio called dominicford.com, and also an anti-piracy company called Porn Guardian, where we get illegal versions of content removed from the internet.
So a couple just brief questions. How did you end up in the industry? And it sounds like you have a variety of other interests. So as an entrepreneur, how did you approach your involvement in the industry?
Sure. So we started 12 years ago, my ex and I. So my skill set, I'm a software engineer, information design, and my father is a photographer. So I have that in my kind of blood. I grew up with a darkroom developing film downstairs. And my ex is a graphic designer. And he does front end stuff like CSS and JavaScript, and I do more like PHP and MySQL and more back-end languages. And the two of us would sit and watch porn, and he would put something on, and I would complain about how horribly the site is designed, and he would complain about how the graphics look terrible, and I would complain about how the photos look awful. And so we kept saying that, and we kept saying, like, between the two of us, we have the skills to do something different. And this was 2008, right? So like 12 years ago. The recession kind of hit, and my day job wasn't doing so hot. And he and I were like, let's find something else to do. And we were like, we could do this. We could actually create a porn site. And we didn't tell any of our friends. It was a very hush-hush idea. And a year later, it was paying all of our bills, and we told all of our friends, and like came out to them like one would come out to somebody to tell them what we did for a living, and just like coming out as gay. The only issue they had was that they weren't the first one that was told. So it was a fun little year and a half of coming out about that.
So for people that don't understand how that would work, how did you, within a year, monetize this site and be able to make a living from it?
So dominicford.com. So our angle, and this was because of my father's photography background. We grew up with him teaching us about 3D photography, and he would always take these 3D Viewmaster reels. And so I decided that our hook would be to film everything in 3D. And we were at the time, and I guess still to this day, are the only professional porn site that filmed everything in 3D.
And how does that work? Like, people would need 3D glasses to view it as such, or?
We were way ahead of our time. So we would send out, I wish I didn't bring props with me, but somewhere I have the red and green, red and blue glasses. And we would send those out to all of our subscribers. And then 3 or 4 years into Dominic Ford, 3D TVs came out, and all of a sudden everybody had a 3D TV in their living room, or a lot of people did anyway. And where we were kind of plateauing with 3D because we were way ahead of the curve on that one, all of a sudden there was this need for content, and we're the only people who had 3D content. So that was a nice little wave for us to ride.
Wow. And what part of the country are you in?
I'm right now in Florida. I split my time between New York and Florida.
Okay. And so then what brought you to Just for Fans?
Okay, so Just for Fans is almost 2.5 years old. I guess the long story, I'm not good at short stories, so sorry. The long story is that when we started dominicford.com, which was a very high-end glamour glossy, amazing lighting, you know, like very clean looking site. I would send it to my friends and be super proud of this thing that we shot. And they would say, that's great, but I'm watching on XTube this college kid in his dorm room jerking off in his bed, and there's like an IKEA light on the side that's like barely lighting him. And I'm like, I just spent how much money filming this, and you're watching that. So it has been in my head for 12 years that while I'm very proud of the content we created, there's an authenticity that people, since I started, have sort of gravitated towards that's not produced porn. So that was always something in the head. So what do I do about that? So then 2 years ago, OnlyFans had come out, maybe like a little bit before that. And I saw what they were doing. I'm like, this is a really good idea, but their site is terrible and their technology is awful. And I knew that I could do something better. And I sort of put it in my hat for almost a year, saying, boy, when I have time, I'm gonna make a better version of that, because we need something that's built from the industry perspective, not them. And then I got a hernia and had to sit in my house for 3 weeks, and I couldn't have sex and I couldn't go to the gym. And you can imagine, as a porn producer, that's kind of my life. So I was like, what the hell can I do for 3 weeks in my house that's not watching TV and eating ice cream, which I did the first day. And I'm like, you know what? I wanted to build that. I wanted to build a fan site that was really good. That'll be my project. And so I did that, and that was 3 weeks of development, and then a week or two of testing, and I launched the first version of the site 2 years ago.
And what are some of the obstacles, or what are some of the difficulties when you want to build a user generated content site in adult entertainment? And I assume you were kind of working for yourself, by yourself. You didn't have like a 10-person team.
No, it's just me. I mean, I'm a developer, so I don't really need anybody else. And my partner, my ex-partner, who's the graphic designer, I begged him to help me, and he didn't want to do anything in porn anymore. And so the first version of the site was not so pretty. I mean, it was functional, full of good ideas. I always joke, it's how my parents would, you know, if jokingly they would say about me, like, well, full of good ideas and works, maybe not so pretty. And that's what the site was. But it was amazingly successful for what it did. He has now come on board, and this month we've been revamping and making everything look a lot prettier. So we're finally sort of looking the way it should have looked 2 years ago. But as far as just building it, yeah, I build everything myself. So it's just me sitting at home at a computer.
Yeah, I mean, do you find the developing a business model was that difficult for you? How do you deal with the actual payment stuff? Because I know a lot of banks won't take funds if they're from adult entertainment, or there's some like online e-commerce banking platforms that won't let you utilize them. How do you work out releases and manage those type of things?
Yeah, it's a whole different world. So the good thing is that this is not my first try in the industry. I've been in it for 12 years, so I have all these relationships. I have the banking relationships, the credit card processing relationships, any kind of external vendor in that sort of supply chain. I have, and I've had for 12 years, and I'm a known entity to them, so I'm not a scary idea. So would this be a difficult prospect for someone just starting? Sure, it's the adult industry. It's a parallel universe of vendors, because we cannot, as you say, we cannot use mainstream vendors. So it's a daunting task to get into, but you know, I'm there. So that was actually the easiest part for me. Being a producer, like with Dominic Ford, is very different from having a user-generated website. So according to current law, our platform is not a producer. And so whereas on Dominic Ford, we needed to have everybody's 2257s, which is a variety of a model release form that's used in adult. We require our producers, who are the models, to keep that documentation. And if we need it, then we request it for them. And if they don't have it, then that's a problem. And we deal with it. But no, we don't need to keep it currently. But I always tell the models, laws change in a day and by an administration. So if that ever changed, then we would have to have them here. And if they didn't have them, then they would have to remove their content.
Right, right. And in terms of both with Dominic Ford and with Just for Fans, is there a particular orientation to it, or did you all specialize in a particular kind outside of the 3D kind of technical aspect? But is there a specific orientation to the content you tend to host?
As far as like sexual orientation?
Yeah.
Well, so Dominic Ford was a gay porn site, so that's all it was. Just for Fans is for everybody. It started very heavy on the gay side because it was me who started it, and everybody that I know came on, and I was a trusted name on the gay porn side. So it's definitely overwhelmingly gay, but the last month there's been more women joining than men. So women are finally discovering us. We have a very large trans and non-binary group of models as well. They were there sort of along with the gay guys, and the straight side is just discovering us, I would say, now as people are fleeing from our competitors.
And what would you say your main differences are from some of those other competing sites or sites that purport to do the same thing that you do?
It's a huge difference. There's sort of a philosophical difference, and then there's a very technical feature, like here's the 15 things we do that they don't do. And then there's a higher level, just philosophical difference. The philosophical difference is that we are from the industry. We are sex workers. We are building a site for sex workers to be safe in. We are not some outside company that's like, oh, we can make money from the adult industry. Let's see how much money we can grab. I've been in this industry for too long, and you don't survive that many years if that's your attitude. So philosophically, we're a very warm, inviting community that is here to uplift each other. So that's, I would say, a huge difference, like colossally huge difference between us and our main competitor, who are distinctly not that.
Right.
Feature-wise, it's night and day. So our main competitor is basically a Twitter feed that you pay to subscribe to. That was the genesis of the fan platforms. That's what they are. That's what they've been. It's never changed. We start there, but we have taken every revenue model in the industry and tried to put it under one roof. So there's a lot of sites where if you want to sell downloads of your movie, they're called clips in the industry, a clip site, then you can upload a movie to your clip site and sell a download there. If you want to have your Twitter profile, then you can go to this site and have a profile where people pay for it. If you want to do 10 other things, you have 10 other sites and you upload your content to all of them and maintain that. So what I wanted is all this under one roof. You can upload your content in one place, and now you can monetize it in any number of ways. So for example, in addition to the profile one can subscribe to, you can sell the clips, or you can sell the movies as downloads. We can give you a phone number that you can use to sext your fans back and forth in a very secure way where no one sees each other's numbers, and you can privately exchange photos and videos, and the user pays for each of those interactions. And you can set the prices. Well, this is what a text costs, this is what a video costs, etc. We have a custom clip configurator, for lack of a better word, where I, the consumer, can go to your page and say, I would love you to make me a 15-minute movie that features the following 3 things that the model has said they will do and how much each of these things costs. So right. I want you to play with a dildo, and that's an extra $15. And I want you to say my name many times, and that's an extra $10. And this is the price per minute. Click submit, pay for it. The model gets the order and they make the content. We have live chats. So I can have I can go live, and I can charge an entrance fee to the room to weed out the people who just want to watch for free. I can make tips from that. The list goes on a lot. We're so featureful, and we give models just an unprecedented number of ways to make money.
Wow. I mean, I'm listening to what you're talking about, and as a musician, I'm like, yo, somebody needs to, get up under your wing and learn the technology so they can provide this type of service for artists.
So we did. Um, we have two other sites that are not porn. We have Drag for Fans, justfor.fans, which is specifically for drag queens. And then because of COVID, we launched a site called frontrow.center. And that is for musicians, artists, dancers, singers, any other nightlife performers who are looking for this kind of technology to monetize what they can no longer do in a bar or a club. So we've
Wow.
done that.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. And have you always been this entrepreneurial? Like, were you one of those young people at like 12 years old that was trying to start your own business, or is this something that?
Yeah, I had my first software published when I was 11. Um, Maybe if I had a lot of friends when I was young, that would be different. But you know, it's served me well. So yes, I'm an entrepreneur always. I've always run my own companies. My whole family is like that. My father, my mother, my sister, they all run their own companies. It's in our blood.
Wow. And in terms of that being applied in the adult industry, what do you think? I know you've mentioned that, like, kind of the ethos of why you all started and where you're coming from is a major difference. The functions and services that are available, but also in terms of the mindset, it sounds like you're a very artist or performer oriented business owner. Do you think that kind of makes you stand out or is unique within the field?
Um, yeah, I mean, so I'm a musician. I'm a professional pianist outside of this world. So I definitely hover between, the tech business world and the artistic world very much evenly. I have been on screen in the last 12 years and not just behind the screen. So I'm very well attuned to models and their needs, and I listen. And so when I say I'm well attuned, it doesn't mean that I know everything. It means that I know a bunch, but I listen very well to what people say. And one thing that if you ask anybody who's on our site, that they'll tell you is that if they have a need or a problem or a suggestion, like, they feel very comfortable talking to me, knowing that they will be heard,
Right.
because we all succeed together. And if they have come up with an obstacle to them making money or a way for them to make more money, it's in my best interest to listen to them and help them make more money, because then I make more money.
Right. So can you explain to people your model in the sense of, are you generating or able to monetize due to ad space? Is it just a percentage of the total subscriptions? Are there special kind of buy-in programs or collaborative elements? And how is that different than a normal studio?
Oh, okay. Well, there's two very, very different worlds. So we'll start with studio. The way studios work is I, as a studio owner, hire models. I pay them a flat rate for the scene or the movie, whatever it is. And then they sign away all of their rights. I own the content, and I can monetize that in whatever ways I want. I can put it on the site. I can make a DVD. I can sell it to a TV station in France, whatever I want. So I now can perpetually make money off of that as a studio owner. And the models made their flat fee. And whether the movie bombed or was the best movie in the last 30 years, they have made, whatever it was that they made. This is a colossally different idea from Just for Fans, which is putting money and the idea of a recurring income and it's not royalties, but it's the idea of royalties, in the hands of the models. So models upload their content to Just for Fans. They own their content. They're not giving their content to me or to anybody else. No one else owns it. They're in control of their image. They make a majority. It's typically about 70%. It can go up to 85% of their sales. We stay in business by taking the other 15 to 30%, and sort of across the board. And that's it. It's very clean. And to think about models controlling their own content, it may seem like an obvious idea. It did not exist in the industry. right? And so what does that matter? In addition to models being able to monetize their content from now until eternity and still own it, there's a big other idea. And the big other idea is that if you're this 18-year-old kid and you do a scene for Dominic Ford, and you sign your rights away, and then when you're 20, you're like, boy, I made a horrible decision when I was 18 years old, and you contact me and say, can you take that down, or recall the movie or whatever it is. I, as a studio owner, have the full right to say no. I mean, you signed it, and you're on the cover of a DVD. Are you going to pay me and all the production people and the other models because you made a bad choice? And a bad producer will have one answer to that, and a good producer will have another. And who knows what the answer is to that?
Sure.
Legally, the model has no rights. Now, switch pages to a site like Just for Fans. The same 18-year-old kid at 19 says, boy, that was a mistake. They closed their page down.
Right.
That's it. They own the content. No one else owns it. No one else can distribute it. So if they decide they're done, they're done.
Right. Right. And so in terms of also being the creators of their own content, I would assume you run into less issues with people feeling pressured or feeling like they're coerced into activities or scenes or engagements that they wouldn't want to.
I mean, it simply doesn't exist. I mean, this is all content they're filming for themselves. So there's a tremendous freedom and control over one's own content in doing that. And there aren't stories. I can't think of one. Whereas on the studio side, there are always some producers and directors that you hear horror stories about, and every couple of months there's some article that somebody writes saying so-and-so made me feel uncomfortable by doing this, or I got there and I thought it was going to be one person, it turned into a gangbang, but he said unless I bought my plane ticket myself to go home, I was stuck there, things like this. I mean, no one likes to hear that at all, but certainly in the fan-produced world, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the discussion in terms of stigma around adult entertainment. There are two or three things that generally come up when I'm speaking to people that are distant. And one is, well, that's just a forum and cabal for child trafficking. And I'm like, everyone, if it's legal, everyone has to be above 18. So like, calm down. And the other thing is like, but even if it is legal, these young women or young men are being coerced. And so I'd like to give people an opportunity who are within the industry to dispel some of these stigmas or false notions.
Yeah, who's coercing them? It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Honestly, a lot of people not in the industry love to make up ideas what the industry is because they're not leading that life, and they're they're sitting at a desk in a cubicle from 9 to 5, and boy, being a porn star seems like a much more interesting way to spend your day. So let me shit on it somehow to make myself feel better that I'm sitting in an office. Well, sorry, it's just not the case.
Yeah. And in terms of as a person who's clearly like you're a good communicator and able to speak with folks, does that extend then into a realm of, I wouldn't say activism, but being kind of a mouthpiece for folks in the industry or educational exchange?
Oh, 100%. So I think I mentioned earlier, I don't know how you added this, so I shouldn't say earlier because maybe it's not, maybe you cut it. So I did an interview once a long time ago for a TV station, and the reporter said, don't say things like, as I said before. She said, because there's no guarantee that's going to make it into the cut. So I have to remember that. So one of our big things is community. And yes, I'm 100% a mouthpiece. I'm not intentionally a traffic cop, and we've had some incidents where I had to play moral police and sort of set down some rules. I don't want to be that for the industry. I don't think the industry wants me to be that for them. But it's my site, and we're a community, and I don't want cancer in the community. And when I find it, I need to cut it out. And I've done that a couple times. frankly, to great financial strain on myself. Like these were people who were making a lot of money, but I removed them because I just didn't like the way they were treating other models.
Right.
And you can't build a community if you have that element in it. We have a charitable giving part of us. So in like mainstream e-commerce, there's this idea of ethical spending or ethical, like ethical spending, where I want to know that the company to whom I give money shares my belief system, and or supports causes that are important to me. So this is what ethical spending is.
Right.
This idea does not exist in the porn world at all. And giving to charity has always been a very core value of mine. I've never had a platform where I could systemize that. And so in year two of our existence, or year one? Oh God, I don't remember anymore. I think it was the second year. We built a charitable giving arm to Just for Fans, and we have signed up. It's 5 or 6 charities now that represent parts of our community. So we have 2 different trans organizations. We have an HIV/AIDS organization. We have 2 different sex worker organizations. You have to look at the list. And models can choose to give a percentage of their income to any of these in any combination. So I want to give 3% to this organization and 2% to that organization, and it's all in the system. So they don't have to do anything. It just, the subscription comes in and we say, okay, you get this percentage and you get this percentage, you get this percentage. And I think I don't know what the number is offhand. I could look, but it's something over, I think, $10,000 or $16,000 that we've raised already for charities off of just little percentages of sales from the site, and that's the models doing it. I have facilitated it by building it, but the charity is on behalf of the models. It's the models who are giving up money to do this. So it speaks volumes to our community's interest in supporting each other.
When you're speaking to people about this and you tell them that there's a charity arm or that a portion of the proceeds go to community groups, are folks shocked by that, or are they
I don't know. Like if you're asking how consumers feel, I mean, I'm not sitting next to them when they discover these things, so I honestly don't know. I know it was a shocking idea when we launched. Everyone was like, "Who does that?" I'm like, "I do that. Like I have a voice now, and I'm fully intending on using it to the best of my ability."
Right. And in terms of your working with the site, where would you like to see it go in the next 2 years or 3 years? What would be in a fantasy world of like best case scenarios? What would you like to see happen?
I'm so in the weeds every day building things and fixing things that, I mean, do I have projects that are long-term? Yes. Are those, these grand abstract ideas that you're asking me about? No. I would like, in the short term, I would like more women to come to the site because they're just discovering it, and they're now finding, how do I say this? The difference between a competitor who just looks at them as a money grab versus us who understand them and want them to feel safe and secure. The gay side knows this now for 2 years, and the straight side is learning about us now. So I think that's, if there's anything that I want, it's for that to happen and for people to stop. The thing that irks me is that our competitor is constantly failing. Like every day there's some other tweet saying they didn't do this right, or they didn't pay me, or they shut my account down, or their site is not working for the last 6 days. And yet everybody gives them 15 chances because they have a bigger name and they have bigger traffic. And I'm like, Like, at what point do you just say there's a better solution there and I'm going to use it? And so if there's any goal that I have, is for people to come to us and not them. On the gay side, that's happening. On the straight side, I think we need the straight male traffic to build to a point where that's where that's an idea.
I mean, that's an interesting question. I had a bunch of friends who obviously due to this economic shutdown and pandemic who had been performing either go-go dancing, working as exotic dancers, or other kind of out and about versions of engagement with people, and now they have to be inside, and they were going to go start like an online platform, and they were going to try to do some online stuff, and went to like OnlyFans and went to whatever, and their main thing was the site itself doesn't help generate following for the model, and since they haven't had experience promoting themselves, they're just there putting up stuff, and it takes a really long time to actually build an audience. For you as a site, how are you able to promote yourself so that people know you're there and will come to you instead of OnlyFans or instead of all my fans?
Well, so there's two very important points here. One is that you're correct. On the competitor sites, you bring all the traffic. Like they don't particularly have internal traffic a lot. We're not that way. We constantly promote and cross-promote models, so you can get a lot of new people discovering you on our site because we're promoting you in so many innumerable ways. But the very simplest way, we have a page where you can search for models, and I can search for models who fit the certain criterion that I want to see, and I can see who's top selling and who's most recently updated or who just joined. I, as a model, can be friends, like you could on Facebook be friends with other models who are verified, and then you could see the other models in my friend list. I can shout out models in a post, and their profile picture appears in the post with a link to their site, to their page. So there's tons of ways that we cross-sell models. So if you are a new model like your friends who don't have traffic already, they will much more succeed on Just for Fans than they would on any other site.
Yeah, because I mean, at this point, most of the people I know who have been engaging, if they are able to do well, it's normally because they had built up either strong following on Twitter or Instagram, and then they run that, kind of funnel that to their fans or clip site. But Instagram doesn't let you do nudity, so that doesn't work so well for some of my friends. And some of them aren't really into Twitter at all. It kind of don't get the platform as a tool for exchange and communication.
Yeah.
And so then how do you as yourself, like I know you have a certain amount of outreach from your experience in the industry so that you can garner attention or maybe get people to come to your site. But what are you able to do? So if someone's like, all right, I'm going to start my camming, that you pop up first or that you're one of their first options?
So it's a good question, and I'm not going to claim to be a master at that. I kind of do my thing, and I am more of the build it and they will come, which is maybe that's a too organic approach, and I should be buying ads and keywords and all these things, and I don't do that. I try to build a good product and hope that people notice it. But I'll tell you what we do. So I'm very active on Twitter. For your friends who aren't on Twitter, who want to get into the adult world is really on Twitter more than they are on Instagram or anything else because of the reasons that you said. So getting on Twitter is a huge thing. I'm very active on there, both with my Dominic Ford account and my Just for Fans. It's Just for Fans site. They're both very active and vocal about the industry, not just about us as a platform. The adult industry has tons of conferences every year. They're all canceled right now, but in general, tons of conferences. I'm at all of them. I'm on panels speaking. So and sort of telling people about us. Right. We as a company, I think I mentioned giving back to the community. Before COVID, we would sponsor anywhere between 20 and 30 events a month. Typically gay events, because there aren't straight events. because anything else that's not a gay event is a straight event. So gay weekly parties, monthly parties, events at bars and clubs, special parties in the gay and trans community. We sponsor and put a lot of money into the industry and try to give back to the community, and also obviously get our name out. So like off the top of my head, like the Charlie's Underwear Party every Wednesday in Las Vegas. We do. There's a monthly trans party in Kentucky that we sponsor for trans girls. The list goes on and on, literally 20 or 30 a month. And so, and all the award shows as well. So I guess that's, as far as like marketing, that's the kind of stuff that we do.
And are you the person that, because like we came into contact via Twitter and you responded very quickly after I sent you a note. Are you the person then managing all these different relationships and marketing endeavors, as well as then the coding and site itself and the build out, or do you have a team now?
I have a wonderful guy named Anthony John. If anybody who has done like gay events in the last 10 years knows him, because he's been part of so many of them. He came on board a year ago. I originally thought that I needed to hire like a personal assistant to just do shit, because I'm running out of bandwidth to do things myself. And I made a list of what was taking my time, and what was taking my time were sponsorships and events. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, if that's really what I need, there's a guy who does this specifically. Anthony is an event manager. He's absolutely fantastic. So my one employee is him. And so all of this kind of sponsorship and event stuff and the 20 or 30 events that we do, he manages all of that. And it's a lovely not burden, I shouldn't say, but a lovely way for me not to spend my time.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about the different types of events. Do you see there still being this partition, or almost like very noticeable wall between gay, queer, trans, and quote unquote straight events and markets?
Most definitely. They are different worlds with different needs and different voices who need to be heard in different ways. And I mean, you can divide that even deeper. I mean, if you want.
I mean, just if you could briefly, could you expound upon that in the sense, like I live in New York City, right? So up here, I had a friend come in town. And he's like, "Yo, where's the gay bar?" And like I looked at him and I was like, "Interesting." Like I hadn't thought about it, but where I grew up, they were like gay bars. But up here, it's like everyone's open to everything. So there are some particular places, and there are some specific venues that are for the queer community, trans community. But in general, if you went into any bar and someone made someone uncomfortable for their presentation, everyone would look at you crazy. It's like, yo, it's New York. Like everything's everything. And so for folks that may be in other places not like New York, what's the setup? Like, I have no idea.
Well, I am a New Yorker. I spent half my year in New York. It's different. I mean, if you go into smaller rural areas, there is still that great need to have a safe space that is just for your community. Right. And frankly, I understand that everybody feels comfortable anywhere in New York. I think that's also necessary in New York. I think going to a gay bar, going to a gay bar where you sort of know what you're getting into is a safer element for a lot of people. And going to a gay bar that will also let bridal parties in is different from going to a gay bar where they're not going to let a bridal party in.
Right.
I think to a different degree, and that needle has moved in New York, but there's still a need. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's palpable. It's definitely more palpable in the more interior states than the coastal states. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything really to say about that, but it's a huge need. But also like we sponsored. There's I'm going to screw up the name of it. It was in Virginia. It was it was an African American gay pride event. It had a name I can't think of right now. But my point being that there's pockets within our communities that have different needs and need to be heard in different ways. And so the African American community in the gay community has different needs to be heard. The trans male community has different needs than the trans female community,
Right.
are very different from the non-binary community, and they're all waiting for people to hear what they have to say and to understand. So, yeah, it's a whole tapestry.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I saw your work, I wanted to purposely reach out because I think I've been interviewing a bunch of folks that were coming from a more quote unquote heteronormative or quote unquote kind of like traditional experience within adult entertainment or sex work. And I want to make sure that I'm more active and like try to put in more due diligence to letting folks know from like my community of artists, from the community of people I've been hanging around, what's happening around the country and from different people's perspectives. So I really appreciate you doing this interview.
Oh, my pleasure. I'll give you one example. So National Trans Visibility Day was last month, and we had this great thought that we were going to take. So when you're browsing for models on the site, you can choose between cisgendered male, transgendered male, cisgendered female, transgendered female, and non-binary. And we had this idea to sort of combine the transgendered and the cisgendered into one idea. So if you want to search for men, you're searching for men, and that includes cis or trans. And you want to search for women, you're searching for cis or trans. And we are no longer going to make a distinction. And what amazing visibility that would bring to the trans folk who are on the site. So I got this idea. I was super excited. I reached out to a few trans men who were beyond ecstatic that a site of our size would take this sort of forward stance. And then I'm like, oh, I haven't spoken to any trans women. Let me run this past the trans women's side. And they were completely uninterested in the idea. All of them that I spoke to, and there were many. And I was flabbergasted because it's not a community that I can anticipate needs. It's a community that I can listen to and try to support. That's the best that I can do, is listen. And what I heard was where the trans male community is clamoring for visibility, the trans female community did that 20 years ago. And they're in a different space now. They're a known entity, especially in porn. They are a category, whereas trans men aren't. And they don't need to be lumped in with some other category.
Right.
Now, again, I'm saying this to you. It was very controversial, and even in bringing it up, now there's going to be 10 people who disagree with me and who hate me for it. My point is not to speak for a community; it's to listen. And by listening, we did not launch this feature because I couldn't launch it for trans men and not for trans women. So we ended up doing nothing other than some signage and some automatic ways to look at the trans folks that we have. And that was our kind of trans visibility today, with kind of a thud compared to what I had wanted. But had I done it, I would have angered half of the community. So anyway, moral of the story is you can't speak for everybody, but you can listen to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that is very prevalent in numerous communities or environments. Like with doing arts and entertainment events, I try to make sure that there's a platform for marginalized voices, communities that normally aren't given space. And my idea of what it should be is really rooted in where I grew up, how old I am, the experiences I had. And so I'll come up with stuff, start speaking to people, and they're like, why do you think that would be interesting to us or me? Or maybe you could try this. And trying to please everybody is an impossibility. But I agree with listening and being sensitive and aware of, once people do give you information, to trust their experience and not, at least for me, not impose mine on them. And so I guess that's really awesome that you're so responsive.
And that's, I mean, that's the ethos of Just for Fans. That's, you know, my personal philosophies go into building our site. And I think that's one of the palpable differences between us and the other people in the space.
Word. All right. Well, I think we've covered it, man. You've been awesome for the interview. Would you like to leave people with one tidbit of information, or give anyone a shout out, or do a final closing argument?
Um, well, I mean, I guess just to be timely, you know, so God willing, this will not make a difference in 3 months if somebody's watching this. But right now is a very, very tough time for sex workers. A lot of them live their make their money in the real world, not the virtual world. And whether that's go-go dancing or escorting or bartending or whatever it is, they can't do that now, and they are strictly online. We Our weekly payouts, we had a minimum of $50 as a payout because it costs us a lot of money to run payroll, as we just can't afford to pay people less than that. We are now paying people minimum of the $20 minimum versus a $50 minimum, just so more people can get money when they need to. And my point of saying that is, we're doing what we can to help people get the money that other people are spending on them quicker than they could before. They need help making that money. And so if you, and it doesn't have to be on Just for Fans. If there's a waiter that you know, you're a bartender or a stripper, and you used to tip them $5, find a way to do that now, because you might be you may be able to work from home. I can work from home. It's less easy for them to. So just, you know, do what you can to give back.
Word. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, so for people that don't know out there, this is Dominic Ford. The site is justfor.fans, and very model, performer, artist oriented. It's good to see that there's some folks out there who are on the business side, but still recognize and remember the experience of when you're not on the business side.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. All right. Well, peace. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to stop recording.
There we go.